Good afternoon, my name is Chris Pond from Corporate Project Solutions. I'm going to be providing an overview of SharePoint this afternoon, specifically around portals and collaboration. We'll probably spend about 30 to 45 minutes on this. The slide deck that I used today will be made available afterwards, and we are recording this, so you'll be able to view it back in the future as well. So thank you for your time today. We will have a Q&A session at the end, so if you have anything, you'll see at the top of your screen the ability to click on a Q&A area and look at that as well. So there's a few slides to go through today. I'll keep it fast-paced because I understand you're sat at your PC looking at this. And so very briefly, we're just going to do an overview of CPS, look at some of the challenges, talk about and do a SharePoint demonstration, and talk about implementation approaches as well. We will be looking at some live aspects today, and hopefully the aim is that you get an idea of some of the art of the possible. The assumption for a lot of organisations now is that they already have SharePoint and they're looking to see how they can extend it. So we do run a separate session specifically around reporting and business intelligence. So how can we integrate with other systems and then produce various different views and reports across the data in our organisation to really give us better insight into what's going on. We will touch on that briefly today. So Corporate Project Solutions, we've been going since 1995. We're a Microsoft specialist. We specialise in two main areas. That's for the technology standpoint, anyway, Project Server and something that sits, and Project Server is something that sits on top of Microsoft SharePoint nowadays as well. As you'd expect, we provide training in the technologies, and it's also in the business solutions that we provide to organisations. And we also do a lot around business consulting, so if you're interested in understanding more about that, do feel free to drop me an email at the end. We'll have contact details. So we have got competencies in SharePoint and Project Server. We've got a great list of organisations, and we'll actually look at some of those as we go through today as well. And we were a launch partner for SharePoint 2010 Office and Project as well, which was released back in May 2010 now as well. Okay, so type of solutions that we work with organisations on, the propositions that we have. Classically, you can see here the intranet, extranet, where we can share with our partners, business intelligence we discussed briefly, and reporting. The ability to use SharePoint for a much more kind of social aspect to our working and business lives as well. So how can we interact on the more unstructured data, perhaps? And people coming through into the workplace now have a much more kind of Facebook / Twitter way of looking at some of the information and communicating as well. If we've got all this information, maybe we'd like to be able to find and search for that data. So we'll look at that, the power of having all our information in one place, but also being able to go and aggregate it together and gain visibility. And that's probably one of the biggest areas where CPS works, is around the aggregation of information from various different systems into a portal or an intranet as well. We've got the classic document management, so we'll look at the capabilities there. And Microsoft actually used the term enterprise content management, and they really mean there any bit of information that you have in your organisation can be stored, searched, indexed, and made available through SharePoint as well. As part of moving forward with better and improved communications, we look at Microsoft Link as well. So that used to be called Office Communication Service. So it gives you things such as instant messaging on your desktop, the ability to share your desktop with your colleagues, and also voice over IP and video conferencing as well. Some of the other things that SharePoint and CPS can provide and support organisations with as well is around compliance. So that might be simple things like document compliance, all the way through to the compliance around how you implement and govern SharePoint as well. And nowadays there's Office 365 as well. So if you're looking for a more cloud-based or software as a service type approach, certainly that's something that CPS can help you with, and we touched on that briefly as well. So again, there are now options around what's termed a hybrid model, where you have some aspects on-premise, so installed in your environment, and others where you may have that outside in the cloud as well. Okay, so we talk about the future of productivity, and you may have seen that on the first slide. We didn't just say it's about SharePoint, it's about how can we better manage the information and improve our productivity as well. So there's a piece we'll be talking about in terms of the experience you'll be able to see on your PC, on your phone, and on your browser. And again, as I just said, with regards to deployment, whether you want it on-premise or online as well. And at the bottom of this slide, you can see we talk around collaboration, business intelligence, content management, search, and unified communications. So trying to bring together everything into one place so we can more actively and be more actively work with our colleagues and be more productive as well. So we're all used to using our PC, obviously, to look at this type of information. And now SharePoint's much better at providing this information through a variety of browsers, such as Safari and Apple and Firefox at the same time. I've also used it with Google Chrome. I know it works quite well there at the same time. Obviously on your phone and iPad, there's Windows Phone 7 nowadays, which gives a really great integration with SharePoint as well. And obviously a lot of this is now available via the browser. So the Office applications, Word, Excel and PowerPoint and OneNote are now available as web apps, which give you a cut down yet web environment in which you can update and interact on Excel, Word and PowerPoint. And we'll certainly touch on all of those as we go through today. So there's a lot of productivity challenges nowadays. You've got the business who are looking to understand what's going on. So there's lots of complex things that they're working on, lots of data in different areas perhaps, and we want to be able to get better insight. So we can do that by connecting systems, understanding processes, understanding what the business need is, and using the tool set to answer some of those questions. We want to be able to work more actively with our customers and our partners, so we can use SharePoint as a more extranet type way of working, moving away from many years ago FTP, and email as well, and providing a more social working environment, so a more kind of Facebook/Twitter type way of working perhaps. But if we've got all this information, then we want to have a world in which we can comply with regulations. So SharePoint, as part of its base capabilities, also provides us with the ability to do things such as have records management, what happens to a document after X amount of time, how can we share this, what auditing do we need around that as well. And of course, we're looking to IT to help us deliver this as a platform. And so by having SharePoint in our IT infrastructure, what we can then provide to business is something whereby if we need to make changes and innovate, we can do that very quickly. Certainly SharePoint is a great place to be able to experiment, maybe too strong a word, but also take a more rapid application development type approach. And so although SharePoint comes with quite a lot of capabilities out of the box, it's also a development platform as well. So using .NET development amongst others, certainly CPS has developed a number of applications in terms of aggregating data and providing a portal into various different bits of information. Rather than going to different systems, we can bring that together in one place as well. So in SharePoint, we've got a number of different areas that we'll look at in a moment. You can see the kind of SharePoint wheel there. But really it's about helping, if we're trying to boil it down, it's about trying to connect people, reduce our costs with this unified infrastructure, which gives us search capabilities, intranet, extranet, and internet capabilities, the ability to share and collaborate, and have all our information in one place at once, and then be able to rapidly respond to the changing business environment as well. Now, I'm just going to flip through this slide quite quickly. Microsoft put together SharePoint with these particular vision columns, so science and search and insights and composites. And we will provide you, there are some neat 2-page PDFs that are available, so we'll give you access to those. But sites are really around the classical intranet and extranet that most people will be familiar with nowadays. Communities that are helping share information and being able to find data. And content, of course, is our Word, Excel, PowerPoint, PDF, all of the various different bits of information. Now, obviously, content nowadays can be very rich, so it could be video and audio as well. And if we put all our data into one place, then we want to be able to search for that and find it. So not just a search for, I'm looking for document X, but I'd like to find someone who knows about Y. So we can provide those type of capabilities. And insights really around the simplest way to think about it is a lot of the business intelligence, reporting, dashboard type functionality. And composites is about saying, well, if we have sites and insights and comms and content and search, we can bring all of these aspects together and almost produce no-code type solutions where if I click in one area, it will show me data from another at the same time. So there's a lot to SharePoint, and obviously, again, in 45 minutes, we can only capture some of that. So nowadays, we're not only working on-premise or directly within your IT environment, but we may have a hybrid environment where we'll have Office 365, for example. And Office 365 provides 4 main capabilities. It gives you SharePoint Online, so that's a great way to be able to manage and share documents in a secure environment, exactly as you would with SharePoint. It can be integrated with your Active Directory for single sign-on as well. It provides you with Exchange if you want to. So again, there is the ability to migrate from having Exchange on-premise to having it in the cloud, or having a hybrid model again. And Link, if you're looking for instant messaging and presence information, and by presence I mean being able to see whether someone's online and being able to kind of interact with them immediately, that can be provided directly via Office 365 as well. And then Office. Throughout all of this, the Office suite, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, is available as an Office web application, so that's directly through your browser, and also as a pay-as-you-go download, so you can have the full Office on your desktop as well. Prices start from around £6.50 per person per month, up to around £15 to £20 depending on what your requirements are. And that's on a kind of monthly basis. We are going to be running separate sessions on this, and we'll let you know about those at the time. But it just shows you that we can have this hybrid model where I'm talking to a client at the moment where they're looking to use this because they want to collaborate with a number of external partners, but they don't want to have the licensing issues or having to set up access into their systems themselves. So this can be a really great way to get up and running with SharePoint and the other capabilities quickly. So why might you have SharePoint? So just kind of, we're coming to the end of the slides here, but it's really about having that single platform we discussed. It works with the tools you use every day. So if you're using Office 2007 and Office 2010, you get a really rich experience there as well. And it can be used as a platform to help promote and develop collaboration. So trying to move away from collaboration through email into a much more a much richer environment where not only can we share data, but we can have a much more enterprise content management approach to the way that we deal with that data as well. So, even simple things like the ability to check in and check out documents and have version control if you wanted to as well. So there are some of the reasons why people have SharePoint that we see on a day-to-day basis as well. Of course, it's a great platform from which to develop on as well. So in terms of the components, the data that SharePoint has in it is stored in SQL Server. 2008 R2 is the preferred platform, and of course it sits on Windows Server as well. And you've got SharePoint Server that then builds on top of that, and then 2 client access licenses. There's a standard client access license, which gives you access to a level of capability, and then the enterprise client access license, which gives you an extra level in terms of some of the business intelligence capabilities. It's important to note that we will send you a link which describes the difference between the licensing as well. And of course, it's a very scalable solution. Terabytes of data nowadays, global implementations as well, and the ability to really scale out massively. You'll see right at the top there, we've got the Office logo, Internet Explorer, the Firefox logo, Safari, and Chrome as well. So Microsoft's trying to be much more open with how you can access this data. So whether you're on PC, browser, on your phone, on your iPad, then certainly there's a great way of being able to share that data as well. And of course, the same can be said around the Office 365 aspect as well, which would give you the same kind of connectivity and a similar level of capability as well. So the last couple of slides then really, just to show you some examples of the types of things that you might be interested in. This is obviously a typical kind of intranet. So I'm sure many of you have got intranets already, but this is really where we hang a lot of the things that people want off. So often people will come to us and say, look, we're looking for a document or enterprise content management solution, and we'll be saying, well, how are they going to access that? Do you have an intranet already? How are we going to hang that off that? And so it really becomes that portal where people can just go straight through and find out what's going on. You know, at the top here, we've got our various departments. We can see there's a little graphic there saying there's something going on for the rugby, Army versus Navy. We've got alerts being shown, a to-do list, and some updates as well. So there's a lot of personalization on here as well. And then as we go down, not only can we use SharePoint, you know, for intranets, but CPS's own internet site is hosted via SharePoint as well. And that really helps us with being able to update our content and keep it fresh as well. So we've got Twitter feeds here. All of the content that you see on there, we can update very easily from directly in the browser, and we'll look at that as we go through as well. And then, you know, how do we build these things out? So we have a process model that we follow in terms of discovery workshops, working with the client to understand the business need, and understanding how can we support an organization with improving the way they work, their productivity, and looking to achieve what they want through a roadmap approach. So, you know, very typically we will use wireframes to start building up a look and feel for how and where the data would be on a page. So we're not talking really about the actual look and feel, but more about in this area there will be this type of data, in this area there'll be this type of data as well. So that just gives you an idea of how you can use that information at the same time. All right, so I think that's going to be the last of our slides. There's an absolute, I've got about 50 or 60 here, and we'll certainly send those through afterwards as well. So I'm just going to come out of this, and then what I'm going to do is just share the area that I have the live example as well. So let's just pull that up. Okay, that's perfect. Okay, so this is my demonstration environment. We're actually building a new one at the moment, so if you come back in a month's time or so, we'll have a revised area. And we're also looking to be able to provide that to customers and clients so that they can log on and try out this tool set themselves at the same time. So this is how SharePoint looks out of the box. So you can really skin it however you want, but I think it's always really important to understand what we can do directly. I've got a number of things going on here. I've got my projects area and my various different projects that we have here. And on this page, you can see on the left-hand side, I've got a list of things, some documents, some lists. I could go to look at the dashboard as well. And on my main page, I've got, you know, I've got a picture being shown, I can see the site users, some of my shared documents at the same time. Now if we scroll back up to the top, really what I wanted to talk about first was content and how easy it is to actually edit this content. And hopefully what you can see there is the pages have changed. And now I've got these different areas. The ribbon at the top is now showing me a very kind of word-oriented look and feel. If I actually have data and words, content on a page, it's very easy for me to come in here and actually make changes to that. So maybe I finally want this to be black, and you can see that in real time. I can see those type of changes. And really what we're just trying to show here is that it's very easy for people with the correct level of access, of course, to be able to update content within SharePoint itself. And content isn't just rich text on a page, it's going to be things like documents, of course, as well, maybe our PowerPoint slides, and maybe some of the richer digital assets that we have nowadays as well. So I can make changes here. Now, each SharePoint page by default is made up of what I call a number of web parts. So, for example, where I'm typing in some text, that's a rich text web part. There's a picture web part over here on the right-hand side where that picture is, and this is a web part for shared documents. Really, a web part, just think of it like a small application that does something for me, whether it's displaying a picture, some text, or pulling data to show me my shared documents. It can also start to do things like aggregate data from across my SharePoint sites. So I might be able to look at, say, all the documents that have to be completed for stage gate 1 of a project, for example. There are various different third-party add-ons to SharePoint as well to do various different things, and I often point people at bamboo.com if they want to see more information around that as well. So I can save and close that. And SharePoint has a workflow engine built directly into it. So we can actually provide a workflow around that with regards to authorization for pages being updated. I've just popped in to see the page history here, and what I can now do are things like say I'd like to compare this version with a previous version, and it will show me all of the things that I've changed over time there as well. You'll notice there's an ability to see version history further, be alerted if things change, and also check in and manage the permissions on these areas at the same time. So let's go back to our project site. And I'm right at the top here, and let's go back down, there we go. Okay, so very simply, we can start to create sites. And this might be a simple team site, it might be a project site, but it's all about starting to collaborate on the information that you have in there. So one of the typical areas that people are interested in is most people have an F or G drive where they store all of their data now. And the problem with those drives is that they only allow you to see the data in one persistent way generally. So it will be by client and then by certain document and so on and so forth. And you have to go down multiple layers or multiple folders to find out what's actually going on. If we look at SharePoint, I'm actually storing my documents in here. If I'm using Word and Excel, I can save them directly in here. It's not much of a big change. And this looks very much like your typical Windows Explorer type of view, of course, as well. Within here, though, we can choose various different views of this information. So I've created a view that shows me all documents. But against each document, I can also store metadata. And in this case, I've stored an item called release. And so this then allows me to start filtering and sorting and grouping my information in that way. So I can now see I've got client release, draft releases, and those that are for internal only. So if we have a look at that, in fact, I've got a document open at the moment, so let's pop into Word. This is my opportunity management document. So I'm in Word 2010 here. If you're using 2007, it'll be fairly familiar with respect to the ribbon or fluent user interface. And when I click on File, I now get this much larger backstage view. And what I can start to do is look at the information with regards to this particular document. Now, if we scroll down a bit further, for example, we can see we've got related people here as some of the information that I can actually store against this. But also, I've got various properties at the top. Now, these properties are defined in SharePoint, so they're available across all of our various different documents. So if we have a look at the status, or a category, or a subject, I can start to put information in here as well. And if I wanted to say who the manager was for this, I can actually come into my Active Directory and start having a look for people and add them to the document. So this gives us the ability to actually put information against the document from a centralized view and doing it in a repeatable, consistent manner. And that's really one of the core things around SharePoint 2010, is that ability to have a consistent approach to the various different ways that we actually work as well. Okay, so while that's doing that, I'm going to go pop back to my my documents, or various documents, and we can see those here. If we have a look at another one of our areas, if I click on New Gears here, these are all of my documents, and again, I have the option of being able to check a document out, look at version history, for example, start a workflow, and send it to people as well. And in fact, in the send, we've got a record center. So record centers allow us to embed compliance around what happens to a document after a period of time, and allow us to declare it as an actual record. So typically we see that in things like the NHS. We've done a lot of work with Great Ormond Street Hospital around their document management capabilities and search and other areas around SharePoint as well. So I'm just going to give you a feel for one of the capabilities which is really around the Office web apps. You'll notice here that I have the ability to view this in a browser. And what will happen here is I can click on this document and it opens up and I can see that. What I can do here though is I can then click on Edit and start to actually edit this document. And this is all being done through the web browser. Now, if you've got a Hotmail account, you can actually see this already because this is provided as part, Office web apps is provided as part of your Hotmail account. So you might want to give that a try as well. So what I can do, come in here, I can start to change the styles. Maybe I want to change that to a numbered list instead. I'll remove that, put that. And what I can do here at any time is save that, and that will then be saved as well. I have the option of doing spelling checking and opening that in Word at the same time. Once I'm done, I can close the document. It's as simple as that. So if you've got people who are working remotely and maybe don't have access to Word, or they're working, on a kiosk, then this is a great way to be able to give people access to Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and even Outlook Web Access if you're using Exchange, of course, in these particular ways as well. So in here, I've got all my documents. I can see if they're checked out, what release they are. And also we've got, as you can see here, I've got a document approval workflow. So it's in progress, and I can actually drill down into that and start to see the workflow. Now, SharePoint has a very powerful workflow engine. Out of the box, it's very straightforward to create what we term three-stage workflows. So I can start, it's going to someone, they've got a task, and then it will finish. And actually, if we scroll down to the bottom here, Dave has been asked to approve this document, which is please approve 410 ring gear. If we look at that, Dave will actually be able to see a form, and you can see it tells him about the document. It's not started, and he then has the option to approve, reject, request a change, or reassign the task to someone as well. And this one's been hanging around since last March by the look of it. So I can click on approve, and at that point, that particular workflow will get approved and people will get notification. So there's email notification throughout this, and people can be assigned tasks as well. So this is another really rich area for SharePoint, which is the ability for us to collaborate on items that a lot of the time people will use Excel for. So there we go, that's finished now. And in fact, if we scroll up here, you can see that Steve's got a tick. He's approved his work or his part of the document, and then Dave's done his as well. So a very graphical way of looking at that. So just finishing off around the workflow capabilities, You can build these yourselves. SharePoint Designer, which is part of SharePoint, gives you a really rich way of doing that. You can use Visio as well. And CPS also is a partner for a product called Nintex, which gives very graphical, powerful SharePoint workflow capabilities in SharePoint and Project Server as well. And we will be running seminars on that at the same time. So let's go back to my document. In fact, there we go. So I've got my list of documents again, and again we can look at those at any particular time as well. Now the key thing here that I wanted to look at is some of the other types of documents we have, just very briefly, or content. So we've got PowerPoint. Many of you will use PowerPoint, and if we're using SharePoint Enterprise, we can actually store individual thumbnails for our or individual slides in a SharePoint library. And what's really great about that is it allows us to actually take some of these particular slides and then copy them to a new presentation. And what's great about this is I can say copy to a new presentation, keep the source presentation format, but also I think what's really interesting is tell me when this slide changes. And this is an issue I've seen many times, which is typically you'll see in a lot of organisation slides it will say we've been going since 1995, and for us at CPS that would be 16 years, 17 years this summer actually. So, you know, who keeps that information up to date, and is it kept up to date? So by using these slide libraries, you can make sure that some of the formatting and the content is kept the same across your organisation as well. It's a feature that not many people are aware about as well. So that's PowerPoint slide libraries. Another one, though, and fairly new change for SharePoint 2010 is the ability to store your digital assets much more easily. So what I've got here is a number of different types of information. You can see I've got cameras and phones and speakers and TVs. And the way that SharePoint works is you can think of everything as a content, and we've got various different content types here. We've got images, audio, video camera as well. And in fact, this bit on the left-hand side allows me to filter and search very easily. So I can now say, well, actually, I'm only interested in video cameras, and it will bring me some information up about that. And in fact, if I hover over that, you'll see some of the information we store against it. So again, against this image or this video, actually, that it is, we're seeing the name of it. It's an M300 digital camera. It's approved. It's when was it modified, who modified it, and what's the product category. And in fact, this is a video, so we can actually play that video in line, and that enables us to actually see that without having to export it or download it. So again, starting to think about how you might use this. I've spoken to a number of organisations where they're looking to set up their own kind of YouTube channel internally for support and learning and training as well. So a great way to be able to share information in that way. Okay, so we've looked at some of the kind of content management capabilities there. So whether it's PowerPoint slides, whether it's our documents, whether it's digital assets, you can see again we've been able to look at that information directly through the web or through the normal Office applications as well. So where I wanted to go next was to say we've got all this information. We also want to collaborate on some of the other information that we have, more of the list-based information. So typically what we see here is on the left-hand side we've got lists. And as many of you may or may not be aware, a lot of people will use things like Excel to actually share information. So whether it's a risk log, lessons learned, tasks, that kind of thing. And while Excel is a great product, it's perhaps not the best way to be able to share that data. So using SharePoint, we can actually have a list of information. Again, we can embed standards, so we can make this templates, and every time we've got a new set of tasks to do, we could set up one of these perhaps for a certain project. Now, in here, what I can then do is I've got a list of tasks, And this is my task list, by the way, as well. So things that are assigned to me will be in here, things that I create will be in here, and I can see all of that at once. And it will integrate directly with Outlook task lists as well. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually put in, I've got a new task. What should we say today? Create Office 365 presentation. Okay, there we go. Now again, if I've got other tasks that are associated with that, we could have predecessors. So again, we're starting to be a bit more sophisticated around our task lists. I can say that it's in progress. Maybe I'll assign it to someone. I'll assign it to Steve Masters. I know that Steve Masters can do this with me as well. And I'll give it a description. We need some new slides. There we go. And again, we can have rich text in here and what have you at the same time. So let's put that. Okay, maybe we'll do a due date there as well. All right, save that. What happens there is we can now see we've got this Create Office 365 presentation. It's assigned to Steve. He'll get an email notification and he'll be able to come in here and look at this information as well. Now, if we drill back down into this, we can see this information. And what I can do here is I'm going to edit this item again. And say it's really urgent. And the trouble here is as well, I can't see that, so I'm going to change the color, so we'll make it black again. There we go. Now again, you'll notice I can attach files and put spelling, check my spelling as well, and I'll click save. There we go. Now at this point, if I wanted to, I can actually go and look at the version history for this, and I can see, right, version 1 is I filled in this data, and version 2 I changed the description. Not something you get it with Excel, and of course the other thing with using Excel for lists and the like is the fact that, are you actually looking at the right data? Because your colleague Bob might have a copy of it that he's downloaded onto his desktop, and in this way we can make sure we're all working on the same information at the same time as well. It's a really great way of being able to share and look at that information. So the way to think about this is like a bit like an online kind of Excel, but with rich forms we can fill in with workflow and version history at the same time. So moving on from there then, if we've started to put all our documents in here and we're sharing information like our task lists and risk logs and those kind of things, maybe we want to be able to find that information as well. So what we can then start to do is say, okay, I'd like to look at the search. Now I'm using something called Fast Search, which is the most powerful version of search available in SharePoint. It is an add-on, but it is a Microsoft product. And what it allows me to do, for example, is I'm looking for a product called Vulcan, and I can scroll down here. And what you'll notice on the left-hand side is that we now get these selectors, so we can start to filter what we actually want to look at. So I could look at it by result type, and in this case I'm just looking at it by the document type, by the author maybe, and by the company. Now I'm only interested in PowerPoint DevX, so I'm going to look at that. And what this is going to do is it'll just show me those. And because I'm using Fast Search, it actually allows me to have a preview of that particular PowerPoint slide. So I can then scroll through that and look at it as well. And what's really great about this, of course, is it really stops that issue whereby, I'm looking for a slide deck. Is it the right one? I go and find it, I open it, or I have to download it and look at it. Whereas with Fast Search, we can much more quickly access that information as well. And of course, if you're working remotely or over a slow link, then again, this can be a benefit. Now you'll notice here I'm searching all sites, but I could search people as well. And the really great thing about this is that the search capabilities are not just searching within the document, they search all the metadata, they allow you to be precise about what you bring back, so we can do advanced searches. But I might maybe start to delve into my people. In SharePoint, use Active Directory, and we can put together profile pages for people. And I might say, well, actually, look, I'm really interested in somebody who knows about Six Sigma. So I might come in here and just do a quick search. And what will happen is the toolset will bring back a list of the people it knows about who has Six Sigma skills, yeah. And you'll notice we get people, we get a picture maybe, we get some presence information. Now, Iden's not online, but we could send her an email directly from here. If we're using instant messaging or link, we could send her a message. If link was linked into our phone system, or we could do a peer-to-peer type call from PC to PC, or we could view more information about IDAN as well, and see what department she's in, who she works for, and her telephone number, and where she sits in the organisation. So I can now see that her manager is Brad Sutton, and I can start to link into him as well. So really great, strong information about people. I can see she knows about Six Sigma, that's great. But I could also start to say, you know, I've got a dog. Maybe I want to say people are Six Sigma and like dogs, and maybe they also know something about dashboards as well. And then I can find Simon. And if I drill down into Simon, what I can then start to see is more information about this guy as well. And on this page, you know, he's put information about himself. Maybe he tells you what he's doing today. I'm running a webinar. Yeah, so we can put that data in there. So that's very kind of Twitter/Facebook as well. We can ask him about information. We can see where he sits in the organization as well. So again, one of the great things about using SharePoint in this way is it can really make people make sure their Active Directories are kept up to date, because we can pull this data directly from here. And just as an aside, if many of you have to create org structures, actually that data can be stored in Active Directory and then accessed either through Visio to create those type of pictorial diagrams for your organization, or shown in here. So Simon Pearson, he's a senior engineer. He obviously works for Carol, who works for David, and David has other people who work on his level. So Diane is the CEO or CFO of Professional Services, and Karim, someone who works for him and has a few other people there. So there we can start to see the organization. So whether you would use this is going to be really dependent on the size of your organization, but it's a great way of people getting to know each other and what skills they have as well. So again, we can find, maybe I want to go and find this Steve Masters character. There's Steve, strategy consultant, who works for Contoso, and we'll see that type of information as well. All right. So just to roll out one of the final bits, because I'm going to come onto this in a separate webinar that we run around business intelligence, dashboarding capabilities. So nowadays, what we can actually do here is we can use a combination of something called Performance Point, which is provided through SharePoint Enterprise, and Excel Services or Excel Web App to actually provide a really rich set of dashboards and views of the information. So I've got a database in the background here, and I'm pulling financial information about my product line. And what I want to actually be able to do is maybe drill down and understand a bit more about that particular concept. So if I look at this information, what I can actually start to do is drill down into it, make notes, and you'll notice that as I'm doing that, what we have is actually the ability to put comments on this information as well. We also have the ability to maybe drill down and see a bit more information about this particular area as well. In fact, if I come over to my fiscal year 2009, I'm going to do what's called create a decomposition tree. And you'll notice, in fact, we can sort, we can filter on information as well. But what this is doing is taking all of that rich information we've got and enabling us to produce various different views of that data. So we're going to look at our sales amount for 2007 for one camera, and we can see it's $800,000. And I could drill down and I could start to say, okay, well, what I'd like to know is I'd like that broken down by sales territory, and maybe we'll do that by sales country. Yeah, and we can see, in fact, we've sold the bulk of what we're looking for in the United States. So maybe again we want to see that by sales territory, but this time by region. Yeah, and we can see the various different areas there, and carry on and see maybe what promotions were we actually doing as well at that particular time. So seasonal discount, no discount. So it's given us that ability to have a really rich way of interacting with the data in our organisations, and really pull that into those kind of dashboards and gain insight into what's going on. But that's using something called Performance Point. and it provides a full dashboard designer for you as well. Now, I've just scrolled to the bottom of the screen, and we're now looking at Excel Web Access. And this is allowing us to connect to data wherever it may be using standard Excel capabilities, whether that's connecting to an external data source, having the data already in the Excel spreadsheet, but it actually allows us to interact with it. So what we can see here is that we have the ability of just load up, there we go. These are called data slicers, the area where I'm currently hovering over. And maybe I'm only interested in the Azure camera. And I can click on that, and the data will change in real time to show me that. Or maybe I'm the Azure and Silver camera, and we can look at the overlay there. And so we can have a much more interactive way of working with our data, and it allows us to, A, have some standards embedded again, but also people don't have to download Excel, connect to data source. We can hide all of that from them and provide a much expanded and better user experience for them as well. So what we've seen there is, in the last kind of 45 minutes, is the ability for an organization to much more easily kind of share and collaborate on the information in their organization. And so using SharePoint, we can move away from 20 years of using file shares, which only allow us to see the data in one way, into being able to share our documents and PowerPoint and Excel and other content by defining metadata against it, so tagging each of our items. So we can say, well, I'd like to see all the data associated with X, and search and filter and find. So some of the solutions we talk to organizations about are not about SharePoint. It's about what are the business issues that you face, and how might SharePoint actually help provide you with a competitive advantage and boost the major productivity as well. So when we work with organizations, we typically undertake discovery workshops and put together an example roadmap and look at a release schedule. And in fact, SharePoint really works quite well using an agile methodology at the same time, depending on the type of project and the organization as well. But you might start with refreshing or renewing or putting in an intranet. And on top of that, you might do some business intelligence and use it for some document management as well. And then in release 2, you might use what's my site, which is where we saw the personalization. You might build in some forms and workflows, so starting to build some more applications into SharePoint. Or maybe use it as a data aggregation tool. So certainly for organizations we've worked for, where you've got maybe multiple systems, with common data that you want to aggregate, you can use SharePoint in a really powerful way there as well. Maybe you want to extend some of the search capabilities. And finally, open that up to your partners and allow them to have access to that information as well and share. Really important, you'll notice at the bottom of this slide is governance. And it's really important that you look at the 3 aspects of governance, which is around the IT aspect, the application aspect, but also the information management aspects as well. And we can send you some base information about that at the same time when we send you through the slides and things as well. So an example implementation plan might look something like this. We start with understanding the requirements and putting a proof of concept together and iteratively working through that. And then start to look at drops of change in the organization. So again, it might be a month, it might be 2 weeks, it might be every 2 months, something like that. But it just gives you an idea of the kind of core way of looking at this. Because really implementing SharePoint is a program of change in that it has technology, but it also has the change management aspect in terms of people changing the way they work, organizations changing the way they work as well. So we don't just need to think about the technology, we need to think about training, communication planning, and understanding how we're going to support the organization moving forward as well. So thank you very much for your time today. What I'd like to suggest next is that if you're interested in understanding this in more detail, and how SharePoint can help with your productivity and with business issues that you face, then certainly invite us along to spend an hour, 2 hours, half a day with you to understand that, so we can start to work with you to put together a business case, for example, but also understand what the implications may be. So there are my contact details. I'm on LinkedIn as well. We will send you an email with these slides and with other content as well. So again, thank you very much for your time. A recording will be available of this, and we will be running a session around business intelligence in the next early in February, I believe, as well. So thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, please click on the Q&A button at the top. I'll be here for about another 5 or 10 minutes, and we'll go from there.